The next morning when Yoon arrives at school, she is surprised and embarrassed to discover that all the students know about the dating bet between her and Ji-won. To make matters worse, everyone is rooting for him to win. Because of this, they even fenced off the flower area with banners, some in support of the president and others warning teacher Yoon to stay away so as not to interfere with the flowers blooming and affect the outcome of the bet. But it's not this bet that is stressing her out the most. Being a very helpful woman, other people often take advantage of her, constantly asking her to do favors, tasks, or solve problems for them. Even though she knows they are exploiting her kindness, she can't bring herself to say no. To relieve some stress, she decides to go to her favorite spot, followed by Moon-soo. Wanting to be alone, she scares the intern teacher by telling him that the place is the cursed Demon's Lake and asks him to go buy some beers. It turns out that this is also a special place for Ji-won. When he approaches and asks her why she keeps coming there, she replies that she just wanted to clear her mind. He says that clearing their minds wasn't the reason they used to go there during their teenage years, making her recall the time they dated. Here, we see how everything happened from her perspective. When a young Yoon asks the boy she had just rejected how he realized he was in love, he responds that even though he tried not to think about her, he couldn't get her out of his mind. And despite everyone telling him not to like her, he couldn't ignore his feelings. She realizes that's exactly how she feels about her greatest rival, Suk Ji-won. No matter how much she tries to force herself not to like him, it's inevitable. She doesn't even know how or why, but she's already in love with him. And to her surprise and happiness, he feels the same way. Naturally, when he confesses his feelings and asks her to date him, she says yes. And since this place called the Demon's Lake was known for being haunted and feared by everyone in town, it became the perfect spot for them to meet in secret as their families hated each other and would never accept their relationship. With the arrival of summer vacation, dating in secret became even more fun, with both pretending to go to the library to study only to sneak away together and enjoy the beach and their relationship without worrying about anything or anyone, just focusing on being happy. Whether at the lake, the beach, or the library, any place became special simply because they were together. However, when he goes to play soccer with his friends and forgets about a date he had planned with her, they have their first fight as a couple. Being a teenager madly in love and in her first relationship, every emotion she feels is at its peak. This makes her furious as she feels she isn't as important to him as he is to her. She yells at him, telling him never to call her again. Of course, it was just words spoken in anger as she spends the night anxiously looking out her window waiting for him to show up. Her happiness is evident when she hears the sound of a pebble hitting her window as he calls her. The rule is if they fight, she can only wait for a maximum of 3 pebbles before responding. But out of stubbornness, she waits longer, pretending she's still angry. When she finally opens the window, he says she forbade him from calling, so he didn't. But he came to see her in person. At the lake, he promises never to forget a date with her again, but complains that she also broke one of their rules as it took him 7 pebbles to get her attention. After promising not to fight again, Ji-won tells her that she seems to become more beautiful every time he sees her. She replies that if he finds her so beautiful, he should show it. The problem arises when he tries to kiss her. She laughs, because they grew up together. And despite being in love, she finds the idea of kissing him strange. But when he kisses her without hesitation, kissing him no longer feels strange at all. Instead, it feels so wonderful that she realizes she can't imagine being without it anymore. As we already know that in 2024, they are not together, we wonder, how could such a beautiful, sincere, pure romance with such genuine love come to an end? While the girl Yoon believed to be her best friend drags her to a camping trip, the present timeline delivers a crucial revelation that helps us understand why our protagonists are still separated. While Ji-hwan is in his office, noticing how Yoon is being taken advantage of by the other school staff, her supposed best friend, Ji-hae, walks in claiming she has something important to say. She begins by questioning why he made that dating bet with Yoon, just as he had done in the past, especially since their previous relationship didn't end well. Ji-hae reminds him that she was the only one who reached out to him after he left. The only one who consistently called to check on him, while Yoon never even replied to his messages. Then, Ji-hae reveals what she has kept hidden all these years. She has been in love with him since their school days and asks him to give her a chance to be his girlfriend. However, the only part of her confession that catches his interest is her knowledge of his past relationship with Yoon. Ji-hae explains that Yoon used to tell her everything back then, including the fact that they dated in secret for 3 months before it abruptly ended when he left. Flashing back to our young protagonists, they find themselves reunited at the camping trip with their friends. They make up an excuse to go buy more food, just to be alone and continue enjoying their secret relationship. Everything starts to go wrong. When leaving the store, Yoon sees a girl from their school handing Ji-won homemade chocolates as a gesture to confess her feelings for him. Enraged with jealousy, Yoon argues with Ji-won. Despite his insistence that he had made it clear to the girl that he did not share her feelings, Yoon retorts that he should never have accepted the chocolates as it gave the girl false hope. Frustrated, Ji-won argues back, saying he doesn't know what to do since he can't even reveal that he has a girlfriend. Hurt, Yoon tells him never to call her again and that she doesn't want to see him anymore. She storms off, but this time, Ji-won doesn't go after her. That same night, Yoon's grandfather and Ji-won's father had a heated argument over both families competing to purchase a mountain. Suddenly, Ji-won's father collapsed and lost consciousness. As Yoon was walking home, crying and upset about her fight with Ji-won, she saw an ambulance heading toward her house. Worried about what might have happened, she ran to find out. There, she saw Mr. Shock still unconscious being loaded into the ambulance, and Ji-won so focused on accompanying his father that he didn't notice his phone falling to the ground. That exchange of glances as the ambulance doors closed was the last time their teenage versions saw each other. Days passed and Ji-won still hadn't returned, sent messages, or called. Yoon asked Ji-hae if she knew anything, and Ji-hae told her that her mother had said Mr. Suk was transferred to Seoul. And since then, no one had been able to contact the Suk family. At night, Yoon tried calling Ji-hwan but couldn't reach him. She tried several times but became desperate when she realized he wasn't going to answer. Yoon spent the entire night crying and trying to call him. The next morning when her mother went to wake her for school, she found Yoon unconscious and burning with fever. In Seoul, Ji-won finally managed to get a new phone as his old one had been destroyed in the ambulance. He immediately tried to call Yoon, but she didn't answer. Now it was his turn to suffer, believing that she had truly broken up with him. In her vulnerable and heartbroken state, Yoon made the grave mistake of seeking support from Ji-hae, whom she believed to be her best friend. Yoon confided in her fake friend, revealing that she had been secretly dating Ji-won, that she loved him and missed him deeply, but thought he must be angry with her, blaming her family for what happened to his father. Ji-hae, seizing the opportunity, became even closer to Yoon under the guise of offering support. However, her real intent was to stay near Yoon's phone, reject all of Ji-won's calls, delete the messages he sent, and pretending to be Yoon, sent him cruel texts that hurt him even more. Even so, Ji-won decides to travel to her town to deliver a birthday gift he had promised her, a red scarf he made himself. However, before he arrives, Yoon remembers the promise they made, that if they ever broke up and regretted it, they should meet on the day of the first snowfall at the Namsan Mountain Observatory. Unfortunately, fate was incredibly cruel to our protagonists. While Ji-won runs to her house to find her, she runs to the observatory, hoping to meet him there. When Ji-won arrives and throws the 3 pebbles at her window but she doesn't open it, and when she arrives at the observatory but doesn't find him there, both spend the night consumed by the immense pain of accepting that their relationship has truly come to an end. Now, in the present, at their special lake, both are hurt and angry with each other, unaware that the love they feel for one another was, is, and always will be mutual. When Moon-soo arrives with the beers for her, Yoon drinks too much and ends up falling into the lake. While Moon-soo prepares to save her, Ji-won, without a second thought, dives into the water to rescue her. The problem is that he forgets the lake is shallow. And Ji-hae isn't the only one concerned about these two getting closer again. Moon-soo also seems uncomfortable with the situation. It turns out that the intern teacher has been following Yoon everywhere since he arrived at the school, always hinting that he knows her better than she realizes. By always helping her with all the tasks and favors that everyone at school demands of her, Moon-soo is invited to dinner with her and her grandfather at the school's countryside house where they live. After dinner, she walks him to the bus stop and it's there that she finally remembers him. Yoon's life has become a true disaster since her breakup with Ji-won. In a conversation with her psychiatrist, we learned that in addition to dealing with depression ever since Ji-won left, she got a job after graduation where she was betrayed by a co-worker she had tried to defend from harassment by their boss. The woman was bribed and agreed to deny being harassed, getting promoted while Yoon was fired and sued for defamation by the company's CEO. To make things worse, her parents died in a car accident. And at their funeral, through the news, she discovered that her father had embezzled money from his company and her grandfather's foundation, leading to the family's bankruptcy. Due to the immense emotional burden, her hair started turning white and her vision deteriorated. It was in this very place that Yoon met Moon-soo, a former Olympic swimmer who had to retire due to an accident. Since swimming was everything to him, Moon-soo climbed to the rooftop, planning the worst, when he saw Yoon for the first time. As both shared the same intention of giving up on their lives, they decided to do it together. Fortunately, before the worst could happen, they were pulled back and saved. It turns out that as soon as Ji-won heard about Yoon's parents' death, he came from Seoul to check on her. Even though he couldn't approach her, believing that she hated him, he watched her from a distance suffering because he couldn't hold her and support her as he wanted to. He was the one who noticed something was wrong, followed her to the rooftop, and saved her just in time. While he watches her affectionately as she remains unconscious, we realize that he is also dealing with his own struggles when we notice the injuries on his hand and face. In the present, we are introduced to a new girl at school, Ki-soo, who seems to have some hidden connection with the school nurse, the same one who rejected Yoon. Extremely intelligent and considered a genius, Ki-soo struggles with social interactions, which alienates her from friends and even causes conflicts with the school athletes. When one of the students accidentally hits her with a ball, the team captain steps forward to apologize and check if she's okay, but she simply throws the ball at his face and walks away. The boy tries to follow her to demand an apology since it wasn't even him who hit her, just as Yoon and Ji-won are passing by. Yoon scolds the boy for chasing Hae-soo, but Ji-won defends him, saying he was unfairly judged. Yoon reluctantly lets the boy go after Hae-soo, but only to clear things up, not to start a fight. After this standoff, Yoon shows Ji-won the leaky ceiling in the school gym, which has been left unfixed for months. Ji-won boasts that he can fix it himself, bragging about his achievements in Dubai, where he was hailed as a god of architecture for constructing buildings as tall as 161 stories. Yoon mocks his lack of humility, and the two start bickering again. Yoon's friend teases them, saying they look like the leads in a romantic K-drama, where after a heated argument, the male lead ends up falling on top of the female lead, creating a romantic moment between them. Yoon dismisses it, saying that those K-drama cliches don't work in real life. If he fell on her, he'd probably hurt her and it wouldn't be romantic at all. Keeping that in mind, when the same student from earlier accidentally throws the ball again and it hits Ji-won's ladder, Ji-won makes almost superhuman moves to avoid hurting Yoon. Instead, he ends up beneath her, creating the long-anticipated romantic moment. The scene is so touching that even the students get emotional, snapping numerous photos of this special moment. Well, now we've uncovered everything that happened in the past and how Yoon's life has been and continues to be difficult after their separation. Let's better understand the kind of man Ji-won has become. In truth, he hasn't turned into a cold and feared figure among his employees, but rather a fair and honest man who doesn't tolerate illegal practices, even if it means higher profits for the company. Moreover, he still protects Yoon. And when he noticed how exploited she was at school, he immediately put a stop to it, making it clear that her job was strictly as a physical education teacher and nothing more. When Jaewon discovers that his father is planning to humiliate Yoon's grandfather in front of the entire school during the presidential inauguration event and also plans to remove him from his position so he can assume the presidency himself in the future, Ji-won devises a flawless plan to prevent it all. He redirects all of his father's sycophants to enjoy an all-expenses-paid outing elsewhere, hires a rock band to perform the school's real anthem instead of the dull one his father had chosen, and wins over the students who applaud him enthusiastically when he becomes the school's president. Meanwhile, his father is met with boos when he tries to give a speech. All of this is filmed and documented by journalists Ji-won had invited, making it very difficult for his father to justify removing him from the presidency in the future. Frustrated and furious, Mr. Suk tells his wife during dinner that he's going to kick Ji-won out of the house. His wife laughs at his naivety and reminds him that Ji-won is no longer a child who depends on him. He's become a highly successful adult who made a lot of money during his time in Dubai. Furthermore, Ji-won was already 2 steps ahead of his father and had been planning to move out of the house for days. It turns out Ji-won had already noticed how Moon-soo was always hovering around Yoon and even planned to move into the same house she shares with her grandfather, the school's staff residence. So to make this competition fairer, Ji-won decides to join them and share the same living space. Here ends part 2 of the drama. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and check out our other selection of recaps.